By the time Nintendo reached the third game of their most popular series, a series with a tale of saving all video games, their formula was reaching perfection. Super Mario Bros. 3 is one of the most highly acclaimed NES games to this day, and a lot of it impressively still holds up even after 35 plus years of exploring game design. Compared with previous entries to the series, this game improved and added to all of the best aspects from before. Instantly upon starting, you'll see a brand new feature to the Mario series, the world maps. These became a staple feature of future Mario games, and it's not hard to see why from this game. World maps are used to select levels, and it sometimes gives the option to choose which level to play, while possibly skipping over others. But by far the most impactful element of the maps was the theming of them. Each of the 8 different worlds had its own unique environment, very often a creative one. Levels within the worlds mostly fit in with the theme. A big selling point for Super Mario Bros. 3 was Mario's new transformations thanks to brand new power-ups. Available right from the first level was the Super Leaf. Sounds a little bit silly, and it'll get sillier. The leaf transforms Mario into a raccoon, and Raccoon Mario can float with his tail, and even fly if he builds up enough speed. The tail can also be used to whip enemies out of the way and break bricks or activate question blocks from the side. But let's ignore how that doesn't make sense because this was a very exciting addition. Building up speed is an intriguing core mechanic within the game. You simply need to start running and you can watch the P meter at the bottom of the screen to track the speed. Fully building up P speed allows Raccoon Mario to take off, but gaining height is limited to just a few seconds. I'm at a loss for why this is called P-Speed, but the letter P is used for a few items within the game, so Nintendo must have a reason. Reaching new heights can be used just to avoid danger down below, but another thing that makes this power-up so exciting is within the level design itself. Throughout the entire game, levels stick to one idea to the very end, with the goal being simply to get through to the end card. Most levels are actually very short, which seems a little bit anticlimactic at times during the beginning phases, but as the game goes on, it's very appreciated. Shorter levels means that the hardest stages also generally don't last for as long. However, you don't actually have to stay on the main path all the time. Most levels have scattered secrets to find, and using the Super Leaf is a common method of discovering them. What I personally love is that none of these secrets actually affect your completion of the game. Like more modern Mario games will have something extra to collect within their levels. Either you can just go ahead and complete the level, or you can deviate a little bit and see what there is to find. Secrets will always have some kind of reward, often skipping a significant chunk of the level. Perhaps this could be with a stash of coins, or a 1-up mushroom, or even 3 of them. Later in the game, secrets could also give even more new power-ups too. The frog suit, as you might imagine, turns Mario into a frog, giving him quirky movement on land but smooth swimming in the water. A rarer item found in the second half of the game is the Tanuki suit, functioning similarly to the Super Leaf, but now Mario can briefly turn into a statue to trick his enemies. And rarest of them all, not even mentioned in the game's instruction booklet, is the Hammer suit. What a cool idea to give Mario the power of one of his most dangerous enemies, the Hammer Bro. Now he can throw hammers too. While the fun of the introduced power-ups was a huge selling point for the game, we also saw the return of the classic Fire Flower. With this in mind, it's important to evaluate how each power-up was placed within the game. In the main portions of the levels, the Super Leaf and the Fire Flower were shared pretty evenly as the top power-up given to the player. It's another compliment to the design that either of these options feels applicable at any time, as neither is really the correct choice over the other, aside from 6-5 with a puzzle requiring the leaf. This kind of customization was another very welcomed feature, and it didn't stop there. Before entering the level on the world map, the player is given a chance to select from a range of power-ups collected from around the world maps themselves. Item collections were built with even more brand new features such as Toad Houses, in which Toad gives you a chance to pick one item between 3 random chests. The rare items also have a chance to show up here, making them eligible to use going into a new level. Sadly, the frog suit is an outlier as it only has disadvantages on land. Some of the levels were now starting to take on a new look, aside from the options to explore more. Later levels even experimented with puzzles to solve in order to pass. More notably, a mechanic introduced early on and continued in a shockingly large amount of future levels was the auto-scrolling screen. This feature is certainly not popular, with a frequent complaint being that it feels slow. This wasn't always the case because there were occasional cases in which this feature instead made it difficult to keep up, but either way I didn't find that it succeeded in adding value. It's undoubtedly overused, appearing at least once per world. The first 7 worlds each end with an airship level, and I get the idea was to use the screen scrolling to emphasize the movement of the ship, but the other challenges in these levels could arguably work better without the auto-scroll. These levels definitely are too slow-paced and pad the game length more than is necessary. While the first Super Mario Bros. Game contained a solid 32 levels, its threequel boasts a staggering 90 of them. It was an impressive feat to pack so many ideas into one NES cartridge, although all I can say about a few of them is that they really are just ideas. Most of the time, the quality is great, don't get me wrong, but some of the ideas weren't really ready to be published in a game. Auto-scroll is a big example that I've already given, and they also tried to bring back the fish jumping out of the water, which still didn't help make a good level. Other ideas were sometimes not fully explored due to their bite-sized nature. Easier levels were sometimes over before they began. One thing the shortness is good for, however, is when the game gets mean. Occasionally the difficulty will spike very harshly, and what I found was that this happened in places with minimal creativity. This is when short levels are appreciated, but then I have to ask if they are worth it. World 7's theme is all about pipes, and that in itself is a nice idea, but Nintendo really went overboard with the enemies that could come out of pipes. Additionally, World 8 is very inconsistent with its difficulty, and is marred further by the barrage of auto-scroll levels. At least with tanks, the auto-scroll makes sense and gives the effect of them closing in on you, but overall these aspects sometimes make the final stages tedious. Generally, adding more levels was a positive thing, for the simple reason that more levels meant more game to play, exactly what players wanted. But now let's consider the length of the game with all this in mind. With no way to save the game data, players are forced to start from the beginning every time they boot up the game. This makes the amount of levels seem very daunting, and thankfully there was a solution. Saving NES data was extremely rare as a result of hardware limitations, so instead, the warp whistle was created, and it was a direct reference to The Legend of Zelda. It's still definitely a recorder as opposed to a whistle, and when used, the exact same 6 notes are sounded. Whiskorders give the ability to skip up to 3 worlds ahead, but if you activate one while on the special warp island, you can skip all the way to World 8. They're only found in 3 very specific locations, and these are secrets you're unlikely to simply stumble upon. Still, if you want to see all 90 levels completed in one game, you'll have to set aside 5 hours or more if you're not very experienced. Now why on earth is Mario on this journey? He rescued Princess Toadstool, now known as Peach, from the King of Koopas, now known as Bowser, way back in the first Super Mario Bros. Game. Mushroom Kingdom is at peace thanks to these efforts. This time, Bowser has sent his 7 children to wreak havoc in the Mushroom World. Don't confuse the 2 places. The Koopalings steal the royal magic wands from each country in this world and turn the kings into animals. As a plumber, it makes total sense that Mario would be the one to restore peace again. Mario makes his way through the worlds, finally reaching the king's castles right as the Koopalings attempt to make their getaway on an airship. They're just too late every time, and Mario climbs aboard to take them down and return the royal magic wand to the king. In between each land, the princess sends a letter with advice, and a special item that can't be found within levels. But while this is all going on, Bowser kidnaps the princess once again and takes her into his lair in the Dark Land, which is played as World 8 after defeating the 7 Koopalings. It's a good thing that Mario doesn't have to do it all on his own this time. Thanks to a feature that was notably absent from either of the games known as Super Mario Bros. 2, Luigi is also on this journey. 2-player mode was finally back. This still didn't involve Mario and Luigi playing through levels at the same time, but improvements were made to the multiplayer of the original game. One player gets to try a level once before the control is handed to the next player, regardless of whether the level is completed. On top of this, both players could battle each other in an arcade Mario Bros. Style arena if they select an already completed level on the world map, adding a little bit of value when playing with an extra person. The story of Super Mario Bros. 3 was eventually revealed to just be a story within the Mario universe, however. It wasn't until 2015 that the creator of Mario, Shigeru Miyamoto, confirmed what many fans had been suspecting: it was all just a stage play, and the Mario brothers were never in any danger. It's crazy that it took so long for this to be confirmed, but it added a new layer of detail that went partially unseen before. It explains why a curtain is raised to reveal the game title before even starting with gameplay. Many platforms throughout the game have a wooden texture, some of which are suspended in the air with ropes which continue off-screen, as if they attach to a ceiling. A weirder change in this story was the announcement of the Koopalings just being underlings to Bowser and not his children. I like the idea of them perhaps just being actors for Super Mario Bros. 3 instead, but they went on to become recurring villains. The stage production ends with a new telling of what Bowser's castle was like. Just like his first castle, there are branching paths, but the maze-like structure is miles better now. Most of it isn't even a maze anymore, and that's for the better. Instead, there is a choice of paths throughout the castle, each leading to Bowser himself. Bowser's battle is refreshingly different to the other fights in the game. Koopalings can all be taken down by jumping on them 3 times. And I hadn't even mentioned Boom Boom yet, who appears as the boss of all mid-world fortresses, who is finished off in exactly the same way. Instead, Bowser does his best to jump on you, but his floor is made of bricks, which are apparently quite fragile. It's quite satisfying to watch him seal his own doom so that the princess can be rescued. She makes a cheeky comment about being in another castle, and the humor makes more sense now that we know it was all a play. And finally, to conclude the play, the main cast makes a curtain call. This was the biggest hint towards the stage play theory before it was officially confirmed, well placed after beating the game. There's a mind-blowing amount of new content throughout the game that became a franchise staple because it was used well here. It was amazing how it took the best elements from the first game and made them even better here, without even hesitating to show the changes. Much more detailed graphics and a new jovial soundtrack by Koji Kondo. And just look at the first level again. It brings back piranha plants, except this time they shoot a fireball as well as being a moving hazard when they go in and out of pipes. And the instruction booklet very cleverly names them Venus fire traps. But once again, there were ideas that weren't ready to be published in a game yet. These ideas should have been more balanced, and maybe that means extending the best levels so they're not as short, as well as taking out a few of the duds. The biggest change I would make would be extending Giant Land, which was a genius idea and full of great levels. I don't understand why it's so much shorter than Waterland, which came before, and had a couple of repeated ideas. The repetitiveness ultimately is one of the most glaring issues with the game, and it often occurs with the more annoyingly difficult challenges. Not to mention the random Hammer Bro encounters on the world maps, something that was added as another method to collect items, but really just disrupted the flow of the game. But let's keep both modern and retro contexts in mind. This Mario game changed gaming standards and raised expectations. Therefore, my final score for Super Mario Bros. 3 will be 8.6 out of 10. Few games have received top scores from every reviewer upon release. Super Mario Bros. 3 is undoubtedly the standout game on the NES that achieved this. The best part is that it all still holds up today, and in my opinion is still a must-play game. It was remade on the SNES as part of Super Mario All-Stars, and was the headline game in Super Mario Advance 4. This GBA title also included a whopping 38 bonus levels with the e-reader. Both of these remakes, as well as the NES original, are available to play with a Nintendo Switch Online license, and any version is worth playing. Tell me, did you agree with the points I've made? What rating would you give Super Mario Bros. 3 for the NES, initially released in 1988? As ever, thank you for watching, and please continue to be your own unique self. But now when I close my eyes, I'll be in bed with Jimmy Carter.
Does it almost feel like nothing changed at all?
What? In bed with Jimmy Carter?